guys, today it is time for my May wrap-up part 2. So earlier this month I already wrapped up my first half of May because I read quite a lot this month. So now I'm wrapping up everything from the second half of the month, and I'm probably gonna do the same for June. So overall this month I finished 4 novels, 7 audiobooks and 3 graphic novels, and I also DNF'd 3, and I'm gonna talk about everything that I read in the second half. Quite a lot of audiobooks. Let's get through this. So first I finished Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, and I listened to the audiobook of this, which was also narrated by Barney Turpin. If you have watched my last wrap-up, I talked about The Hate You Give, which was also narrated by Barney Turpin. I think she is an amazing narrator, and I cannot wait to listen to more audiobooks that she narrates. It's really fun to listen to her. Bad Feminist is a collection of essays by Roxane Gay that are obviously all about feminism, although it is definitely about some other issues as well. And as always with like any kind of non-fiction, but especially with essay collections, it's just kind of hit or miss with some of these essays. But I have to say, overall, I really enjoyed the book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think just seeing her views on feminism and some other like current issues was really interesting, and I felt like everything she kind of wanted to bring across was in a very respectful way. Like even the things where we disagreed, for example, she had a chapter or a part about trigger warnings, and we didn't really agree on how to deal with trigger warnings, but she kind of talked about it in a very respectful way, and she explained everything very well so that even if you disagree, you can really understand where she's coming from. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, and I have to say I wasn't a big fan of it. I just had once again this problem of reading from a male point of view, especially teenage boy point of view, and I know I'm being like disgustingly subjective about it. I actually wrote that in my Goodreads review. Like I just don't want to read about a guy jerking off to the one time he had sex with this one girl like repeatedly and then being like, you would do it too, because like no, I wouldn't. And so I know like it's realistic, and I know it's like good to include it, but like I don't but that wasn't the reason why I didn't end up enjoying it. I just think in general the book wasn't really for me. I just didn't really see the point of writing this novel where it's about the not chosen ones when the chosen ones are never really actually part of the plot. I really like the idea, I just don't think this was executed well. I just don't think that this worked the way this was supposed to work. I know lots of people liked how he kind of made fun of the tropes or kind of went against this whole like cliche thing, but I personally just didn't see that. I did not think it was like funny in a way it handled tropes. I think this would have worked better as just a completely normal contemporary. I just don't think, for me personally, the concept worked at all. Like I just don't really know where the point was. Like was this supposed to be satire? Because if it was supposed to be satire, it was not enough. Next I finished the audiobook of Unfiltered by Lily Collins, and this was also read by Lily Collins, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. I know how we are always about like people in their 20s writing memoirs is kind of stupid, but I feel like in this case it just wasn't. Like I feel like we should really go away from the idea that, you know, people in their 20s don't have enough stories to tell, because they can have enough stories to tell. And I feel like with Lily Collins that was really the case, because she already went through quite a lot and she was brutally honest in this one. I know that she's kind of private in some ways about her personal life, and in this book she really opened up, but she didn't give us any facts that, you know, we could scandalize or anything that, you know, other people could gossip about. I just really enjoyed hearing her talk about all of these things. So mostly this dealt with abusive relationships and eating disorders and in general, you know, kind of self-love. And it is a memoir, but I feel like you can really take lessons out of it. I think it is a book that could either really trigger you if you have triggers like eating disorder, or it could really help you. I don't have any experience with it, and everybody is different, so I definitely would advise you to be careful if you go into this book having any triggers like emotional abuse, even physical abuse, anorexia, bulimia, stuff like that. But I think also it could potentially be helpful. Yeah, I just overall really think it was an enjoyable book to listen to. I really enjoyed Lily Collins' way of telling the story. I really just enjoy her voice. I gave Unfiltered 3 out of 5 stars. Then I finished my reread of The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab, and obviously I loved it. My rating of of 5 stars has not changed. Last year when I read it for the first time, I wrote this big ass Goodreads review, so I'm gonna leave a link to that in the description down below so you can hear all of the things I have to say about it. I just love rereading Victoria Schwab's books. I just think there's always like little things to discover when you reread her books, and yeah, just loved it. And then I listened to You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost by Felicia Day. I have been wanting to listen to this audiobook for such a long time. I kind of know Felicia Day for a super long time, but I never really, you know, actively followed any of the things she does online. I just really enjoy her for her presence and for, I don't know, she just seems really cool. And so I was super excited to listen to this one because I felt like it would probably also be relatable in some ways. And I have to say, it took me a super long time to get into it. I felt like the first few chapters were just kind of boring. But then when she started talking about World of Warcraft, I fell in love with it. And obviously the World of Warcraft chapter was relatable to me. It kind of made me think about just my general addictive personality and how even though today it's maybe not World of Warcraft anymore, I still kind of cling to some things and get addicted to them and I just don't want to do anything else. And yeah, it was interesting how that made me think about my life, even though now it's not World of Warcraft anymore, it's different things, but just, you know, kind of reflecting on things and thinking about the present day. Very interesting. Anyway, from the moment on of this World of Warcraft chapter, I just fell in love. I loved everything about like Geek and Sundry and everything she talked about, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend it, especially if you like, you know, if you're interested in like women in gaming. She had a whole chapter about like the whole Gamergate stuff and just kind of feminism a little bit, and it wasn't a big topic, but there was a whole chapter. And then I listened to How to Be a Boss by Lily Singh. And honestly, this is nothing I would have ever picked up if it wasn't for Overdrive. I just saw it there. I saw it was really short. Then I thought, why not pick it up? The thing is with Lily Singh, I like her and I find that she is a really nice person and I really admire her hard work, how she just has this super positive attitude. But I never was able to get into her videos. I just can't quite connect with the content she does. I just like her as a person, and so I was super interested in listening to this audiobook. I think it's probably just a book that her younger viewers will really find useful, and I mean, that's all the better for me personally. Like, if someone listens to this audiobook and kind of, you know, finds the strength to fulfill that dream, or I don't know, do something cool, do something crazy, then that just makes me happy, and that is all that this book needs to do. There were a few like personal anecdotes that she talked about, and I really enjoyed that. Talking about meeting The Rock for the first time and all of these little things that she talked about that were a little bit more personal definitely is what made it worthwhile for me personally to listen to it, and I ended up finding it an enjoyable experience, but nothing I would listen to again or that I feel like I learned a lot from. It was just kind of fun to listen to Lily talk. She's fun. So I gave How to Be a Boss 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I finished The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. This is the second book in the Remnant Chronicles, and while I enjoyed it overall, I just honestly think this is too long. Thinking where we started this book and where we ended this book and where we have to be for the third book to start, like, this did not have to be 500 pages to get to where we are now. Like, no way. It was just really slow in parts, and it took me so long to get through it just because like it was so long and so slow, and I just don't think enough happened to justify this 500-page book. In my last wrap-up, I said that, you know, I think that the love triangle in this is really enjoyable, and I have to say it's actually starting to be annoying because it's starting to not be a love triangle anymore. And as I said for Kiss of Deception, I have a preference of who I would want the main character to end up with. I now don't have a preference anymore. I have like a very clear candidate I want her to end up with, and I can already tell it's not gonna be that person because Mary E. Pearson is writing that person to be really stupid. That just really fucking annoys me. It's not a love triangle anymore because it's very clear who Leah wants to end up with, and it's very clear that the other guy is kind of starting to be an asshole because he's like, oh, but we are meant to be together and I have the... I guess it depends on how you kind of describe a love triangle, but for me a love triangle is always when not only how both love interests have feelings for the main character, but also when the main character has feelings for both of these. I think if it's one-sided where the main character just has feelings for one, it's just not a love triangle for me personally. And so I am a little bit annoyed because I feel like at this point the one character becomes kind of unnecessary, and it's just annoying me because I feel like it could be a really interesting, like they could have a really interesting relationship even if it wasn't a romantic relationship, but Mary Pearson is kind of writing it so that the kind of love interest where it's kind of unrequited is just starting to become annoying. I feel like it's just gonna get worse and just more annoying, and I just don't want that because it's so unnecessary and so stupid. It's just like, leave me alone, like I'm not interested. And so like, what's the point? That's just annoying. Stop. I gave The Heart of Betrayal 3.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, probably a little bit too high of a rating, but I did enjoy some parts quite a lot. It just took me too long, and it was too long. Next I read Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertelli, and except for my reread, this is my favorite read of the whole month. This was just lovely, and Becky Albertelli is definitely becoming one of my favorite authors. This gave me so many happy feelings, like I kind of want to reread it immediately. Let's get back to talking about like male point of view and how I don't want to read a teenage boy jerking off. This has a male point of view. I guess I don't want to say it's because it's written by a woman, but I kind of feel like it's because it's written by a woman. She did mention like things that, you know, just happen to teenage boys. It was kind of done in a way that I could really accept, because it wasn't like, so I'm jerking off to the idea of us making out, and it's just like, ugh. It was just like really subtle. I could deal with this. This just kind of stood out to me in comparison to The Rest of Us Just Live Here. Anyway, it was, as in The Rest of Us Just Live Here, it was like 2 or 3 small instances where it was kind of talked about, but I just liked how it was talked about in here compared to The Rest of Us Just Live Here. Anyway, this is just wonderful. As the upside of Unrequited, I think it's like cute and fluffy, but it also has its very pure and honest moments. I love Becky Albertelli. I love this book. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm so excited for Becky Albertelli's next book. So there's this character in this book. She's called Leah, and she's written with an H, but it's still kind of my name. She's bisexual, and she was, honestly, my favorite character in this book. I think many people will probably find her annoying in this one, but I just found her to be like super realistic and also very relatable. So relatable that my heart hurt. And so I'm so excited to read from her perspective in Becky Albertelli's next book. And Becky Albertelli is such a queen, so I cannot wait for her to write this character. I'm probably gonna explode with how much this character will be relatable to me. So I am very excited. And finally, I want to talk about one book that I DNF'd in the second half of this month, and that was Raw by Cora Kamek. I talked about this a little bit in my June TBR. I was just not a fan from it from the beginning because it started out really like new adult tropey, even though it is young adult, but you could tell. Cora Kamek has written her fair share of new adult novels, and I don't have a problem with that normally, but I did not want to go into this book reading about like new adult tropes in the first like 10%. The world building was just confusing and not enough. I got, I think, 36% into it, and then I just decided I was done. It was kind of the point where the story really only began, but I didn't feel invested at all in anything, like the world, the characters, anything. I'm still intrigued by the concept. I just don't think that Cora Kamek was able to pull it off at all. So this is everything that I read and DNF'd in May. What a month. What a month. I'm definitely gonna slow down a bit with listening to audiobooks. It was just kind of this first month of having an Overdrive account, being really excited about having all of these audiobooks. Anyway, let me know how your May went and what your favorite book of the month was. As I said, mine was definitely Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda. Becky Albertelli. Yes! Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!